Welcome to the 700 Club Canada, and we are concluding a great week on men's health, building a better man. And to help me with that, I've had a great panel of guests, friends, experts, wonderful dads as well. And it is Father's Day, so early Father's Day celebration to all of you watching. But yeah, we have Justin, Shiraz, Dr. Drew, Coach Drew, I always call you Coach Drew, and myself, Bill. We're so glad that you are here with us today. But today we're going to finish up by talking about emotional health. And I don't know about you guys, but growing up, we didn't talk a lot about emotions as guys. And so what is emotional health even? What is it? What do you think, Shiraz?
Well, I don't know if I spoke about it a lot, but I certainly expressed them a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, so I have this whole range of emotions that I go through probably on a daily basis.
Right.
I think for me, the defining emotional health was beginning to understand how to regulate that range and how extreme I went on each level.
Okay.
I'm still figuring it out, so I'll get back to you on that one.
Okay, great. Excellent. How about you, Justin?
Yeah, I think for me, it's just that ability to recognize and regulate, you know, the emotions that are deep within us and to call them for what they are, acknowledge them, and then navigate how do you use them, either for good, hopefully for good, and if you're using them negatively, how do you, transform and change that to something positive that makes the world a better place?
All right, great. How about you, Coach?
I'm on the same page. Feeling a whole range of emotions, but not allowing those emotions to dictate your life and to control what you do, say, think.
Yeah, for me, I think emotions are simply warning signals. They just tell you that you need to pay attention to something. They're actually a gift. I actually think emotions, even the ones that we don't like I'll be the first to admit, okay, we're safe here, right? I cry at movies. I do, because I'm deeply emotional. But I don't see them as a weakness at all. I see them as actually a gift that helps us understand what we're feeling and why and what to do with it. So what do you think some of the challenges are for men and dealing with their emotions?
Well, like you said, I call them unpleasant versus pleasant. No emotions are good or bad.
Right.
But attached to that is this idea that men don't or shouldn't feel. And the worst part about that is we are primarily emotionally driven, even though we don't label it. Let's just be honest.
Right.
We do what we do, whether you're being protective or whatever, it's because there's a love, there's passion, there's something there. So we're always feeling. But what we haven't been conditioned to do is actually label them. When you actually label the emotion that you're experiencing, your life will start to change. It grounds you. It helps you to understand you. It helps you to normalize your experience. But we're not conditioned or contextualized to actually label them.
How about you, Justin? What do you think some of the challenges for men are when it comes to emotions?
I think 2 words, I'm fine.
Right.
I think that's one of our challenges.
Right.
We bottle it up and we put on a brave face, or we say I'm fine, but deep down, I think a lot of us, we're not okay.
Right.
I think we struggle, and we haven't been modeled very well how to express, hey, I'm feeling this, and to stumble through the awkwardness of, what is it that I'm feeling? I can't even put words to it sometimes, but to be willing to do that, I think those are some of the challenges.
How about for you?
For most men, you think when you're processing decisions, it's logic. And it's not the case. Just to echo what you were saying earlier, Coach Drew, we all have this thing in our brain called the amygdala.
Yeah.
Just this fancy word, right? It's about the size of a walnut. And what's really interesting about it is most of your decisions are processed through your amygdala. But what science has shown, that's actually the center of your emotions as well.
Right.
Which means most of the decisions and actions we take and make are processed through the emotional center of your brain. Knowing that now, whether you're male or female, that's just kind of how we're wired. That changes things a little bit. And just to reinforce what you're saying earlier, most of our decisions, how we're about to act, what we're about to say, what we walk away from, what we fight for, what we freeze up, is based on an emotional position.
Yeah, well, and for me, it's actually the cultural confusion. Like, so when I was playing sports, anger, yeah. But then when I'm dealing with my dog, no. Or crying. if your bride's walking down the aisle as a guy, I do weddings now, and it's like, you better cry. Like but you can't cry in another context when it's something. It's so confusing. You're like, which emotions am I allowed to have, and how can I express them appropriately is the challenge. And so my takeaway from our first part of the conversation is, what emotions are appropriate, and what emotions are appropriate to be expressed in what context. And so, how do you navigate that?
Well, as you all know, I journal all the time. I've been helping people for almost 2 decades with emotions. Labeling them is key. However, once we actually identify the emotion, then we can ferret out the thought that is fueling the emotion. So everyone thinks and feels differently about different situations. So it's really important to understand yourself so you can be true to yourself and authentic to yourself. Emotions are never wrong. They're never out of place. They always fit the context in which you are actually thinking. So as opposed to censoring yourself, it is good to be familiar with yourself and understand what is contributing to those particular emotions that you're feeling.
Okay, so when you say labeling, you mean like, I am angry right now, or I am sad right now. Is that what you mean by labeling?
Well, I wouldn't say I am.
Okay.
I would say I feel.
Okay, good.
Right? And it's an emotion is a single or compound word.
Okay.
Right? So if you start following up, I feel like this isn't going to work. That's not an emotion.
Okay.
Right? I feel discouraged because I'm thinking to myself, this is not going to work. So understanding the mechanics of it helps you to really identify what's going on in your head as well as in your heart that's contributing to this whole thing coming together.
Okay, yeah, so you separate the emotion from the root, because then you can separate the two and then you can deal with the root. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Then you can deal with the thought, yeah.
Amazing. What do you guys think?
So when you make that separation, what's helped me is creating that gap in the middle. So I'm feeling upset. I'm not gonna punch anything, but like I'm feeling, hey, what has helped me is create a gap of time between what I'm feeling and what I'm about to react and how I'm gonna react. I have found the most damage that I've done to the people around me has been when I didn't create a gap between what I'm feeling and what my next action would be.
Okay, so what does that practically look like?
Practically, you know that the garage door shouldn't have been left open all night. I'm not talking about any of my children right now. I will not make eye contact with the camera because they're gonna know, she's gonna know who she was. As soon as I saw the garage door open, what am I gonna do? Go wake her up at 6 a.m.? I'm up a little earlier than everybody else and start yelling because she left the garage door open all night? Yeah. That's an example of a gap. Okay, I can't react just because of it. Feeling, you have a right to feel, but you don't have a right to respond in a negative way.
That's right.
And that's the difference between being reactive and being responsive or response-able. Like there's intention.
Response-able, I like that. How about you, Justin?
Yeah, I'll be honest, this is one I'm constantly growing in. I have not mastered this one by any means, but I liked what you said about separating that out because I think we can be reactive. Well, I did that because I'm angry. Well, it's not who you are. You felt anger, but now I can choose to respond. Well, why did I feel anger? And I think that's the thing, is always getting to the root of what's really happening in me. Why did I feel that way? Well, it was because this situation happened and that person was going to get hurt. Well, why was that bad? Well, because I want to protect them. Because I'm a father. Oh, okay. So how can I do that in a way that's productive? So I think it's just getting to the root, constantly going, okay, what's happening? Why did I feel that way? And what's going on? What's the deeper thing inside of me? And then addressing that.
Yeah, that is super helpful because that has been my own journey. I used to really battle anger like a lot. And I always would justify it. Well, you made me feel this way, or you did this, or the circumstance.
You made me angry.
That's right. And what I learned was, no, I was angry because I have deep insecurity. And I never felt like I was good enough. So when anything challenged that, my control mechanism was, I'm going to be angry to control the situation. But once I could parse those two out and go, okay, no, and speak truth to that lie, no, that's not who I am. God says I'm secure, and it doesn't matter what happens around me. It actually began the process of eliminating that out of my life. It's so powerful. Other thoughts or ideas on how to navigate this?
You know, I hear this justification sometimes in a Christian context where, well, Jesus was upset.
Right, flip the tables.
Remember, and then he flipped all the tables.
Yeah.
Right? And if you read it properly in John chapter, whatever chapter it is, I think it's chapter 2, it was premeditated flipping.
Right.
So he walks in,
He's in control.
he looks and surveys, and this is what it says. He went in the corner and made a whip, and then
That's right.
exercised his right to drive out because it's kind of his house.
Yeah.
Right? But it wasn't a response. He surveyed and he evaluated, he checked out the whole scene. All right, I see what's going on in here. All right, what am I going to do next?
Right.
Now, was it with force? Force is different than anger.
Right.
He had to evict with force, but that didn't mean that he was doing it in an angry way.
Right.
You know, it's interesting because what we do with our emotions is always communication. Communication isn't just what you say, it's what you do. It's all those parts and pieces. And one of the most difficult emotions for people, and I think men in particular, to deal with is powerlessness.
Right.
Right? And when we feel powerless, then we take control, and it's usually with anger, the emotion, but the communication is aggressive. Now, a lot of times we think aggression is bad and it's wrong, but it's not, to your point. There's a whole range of emotions and communication that we could do. We could be passive. There are times when being passive is good. Jesus escaped out of their midst, right? He didn't allow them to take him because his time wasn't yet. That was a very passive act. Was it an act of cowardice? No, it wasn't. There's choice, there's intention. So we want to be able to choose along that spectrum from passive to aggressive. Ideally, we want to live in this place where we're assertive, we're clear, we're really being responsible, we're being intentional. But to say that any emotion is bad or wrong, or to say that it's wrong to be aggressive, I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's appropriate. When you're in a dark alley with somebody and you're going to protect your family, that's probably the time you're going to let some aggression show.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the key is be responsible.